Our film starts with a woman in a PVC superhero costume giving us her backstory. Problem is the background music is so loud you can't really hear much of it. What I did get was her name is Celeste and she's an alien with powers. Next we get lots of B-roll of what I'm assuming is a nightclub in London in the early 2000s. 5 women walk in and 2 guys get to staring and talking about how hot they are. The one who looks like the lost member of Oasis says they're too hot for him and he doesn't have a chance, but his buddy forces him to go talk to them anyway. Lucky for him, he doesn't have to say a word, as after his buddy gets one to go off with him, the other girl grabs him, though we then see that she takes him to a stairwell to make out with him. The first girl then shows up, and they both seduce the guy, and just when he thought he was about to get laid, they fang out and bite him. Skip to an interrogation where what seems to be 2 detectives are telling some blonde guy that he's a bad man who is getting sent away. Meanwhile, a lady with red hair walks through an airport. Yep, that's happening. Lots of airport walking. Eventually she gets picked up and her and the guy that pick her up have a talk about how much they dislike blonde guy. Eventually we find out that the guy is basically a much worse Charles Manson who does devil worshipping style sacrifices. This goes on for a while as this portion serves as everyone meeting each other. Blonde prisoner is Hyde and the redhead is Detective Lucy Lutz. British vampire films and their Lucys. Anyway, as a cop is going up the steps, he is golden-eyed judo chopped in the back of the head before the 2 vampires from the scene before feed on him. Their madam tells them to stop screwing around and they head to the interrogation room. The women act very sarcastic toward the officers trying to arrest them before fighting back and feeding on them. The madam then tells the girls to drain the cops dry, inferring that she wants them to come back as vampires. The vampires eventually break into the interrogation room and kill the cops that had Hyde, before the redhead vampire is killed by a doorstop, resulting in the rest leaving, but not before Lutz gets scratched. Outside, the madam and Hyde have a conversation about devilly stuff. He thinks he's the king of devil people, and she's like, bruh, you don't even know evil. Back at the police station, a dead cop wakes up as a vampire, though thankfully for Celeste, it only happens one at a time, so they only have to fight with this one and just kill the others before they wake up off screen. Celeste and the police captain then figure out that Raven needs Hyde's magic to do some ceremony. We eventually see Hyde go through Raven's devil book and take off as all the detectives go off and do detective-y things. Hyde goes to some abandoned mansion and beats up a guy who confronts him and makes the other his new henchman. The actor who plays Hyde has about the energy of a toddler on Benadryl in these scenes. I mean, he barely moves and doesn't emote at all. Next, no one will remain seated for the exciting everyone reading books in a library then telling everyone what they found out scene. By the way, I remember what the acting in this film reminds me of. Remember those old grainy Sega CD full motion video games where you would make a selection and then the selection would result in something playing out on screen on video? The acting is bad like that. That reminds me, I should do recaps on the 2 Vampire Sega CD FMV games. That night, Raven gets all pissy that Hyde took her book, but changes her mind when he tells her he did everything already and they could do their ceremony, and asks the vampires to bring in one of the detectives, Markovic, as a sacrifice, which they get all giddy about. We then watch as some really drunk dude walks down the street while the vampire women surround him, prancing like goth versions of the Spice Girls, and they attack him, resulting in Celeste showing up, but way too late to save him. What a cruddy superhero she is. After one of the vampires does some of the most unintimidating karate I've ever seen, Celeste makes short work of her, who sadly is the hottest one, which sends the one in the sparkling boots running. Of course, this was a distraction, as Celeste then Jedi appears to Hyde just for him to brag that he's done, something. Not sure what, but he's really happy about it, whatever it is. Pretty sure he still needs to sacrifice, though. Speaking of which, in the next scene, Hyde and his lackey show up at one of the detectives' houses and abducts him, but before leaving, tries his best to do a pun. The bad joke is probably the only attempt at acting he does in the film, honestly, so, I mean, A for effort.
Hey Celeste, baby, you've reached a number that's been disconnected or is no longer in service. If you feel you've reached this recording in error, who gives a
Back in the police station, Raven and the C Squad vampires, now that the A Squad are dead, go on a rampage, killing the only other extras left in the police station, part of the film. Lutz and company eventually show up back at the station to find the dead bodies of the remaining extras, cops, but Markovic, the big guy, is gone. Celeste arrives, and I must say Lutz's police detective uniform is amazing. Anyway, we then get a repeat of the dead cop comes back to life as a vampire scene, with Celeste and Lutz taking them out. Chris and Lutz then go around looking for others to take out, and we see them stake 2 women. What a shame, but we do see their fangs. Lutz then starts hacking after killing them, but more agents then show up as vampires, so they run. Lucky for them, vampires are easily stopped by yellow doors. Never mind, they just went around. Eventually, Celeste then shows up and Hadoukens the vampires away before stabbing them all. I guess stake to the heart isn't needed. Chris and Lutz are then let out, and I'm distracted again. Back at the club from earlier, Hyde stops random blonde C-Squad fam from feeding on a guy he planned to sacrifice. Chris and Lutz go to the club, and the guy who plays door check guy deserves an Oscar for making eye contact with Lutz during this scene. They eventually find the C-Squad vampires doing the Batootsie to some little bald guy, and Lutz decides to head down. Chris then goes down and saves the guy from the vampires with his smooth dance moves, while Lutz and Celeste go snooping. I guess Chris's dance moves were too good because Hyde shows up and knocks him out. An alarm then goes off, clearing the club that's also so loud it drowns out the rest of the dialogue in the scene. Anyway, as we see Lutz head further down, she's ambushed by the vampires who then bite her on the arm. Celeste shows up and creates a giant cross to hold them back while they escape, but Lutz ends up getting abducted again. This leaves Celeste to get ambushed by Raven and the C-Squad. We then get a scene where the girls try to convince Raven that Hyde is going to turn on her, and when the C-Squad vamps agree, it becomes a battle royal after Hyde stakes one of them. You'd think the other vampires would ignore the woman and just go after Hyde, but they don't, and Celeste ends up killing most of them, with Raven and 2 others escaping. The women then head to the abandoned mansion place that Hyde was holed up at, which no one explains how they knew where it was, but whatever. The last 2 C-Squad vampires, who somehow are already there, attack them, with Lutz and Celeste once again getting the better of them. Hyde then captures Lutz while she was attempting to rescue Chris, and Raven and Celeste have one last boss battle that ends with Celeste giving Raven the Kano Mortal Kombat fatality. Now we're down to 2. Hyde starts doing his ceremony, which sounds like calling Captain Planet as part of it.
Fire. Wind. Water. Earth.
He gives a knife to a rando henchman who then kills Bald Guy, who was clearly going to be the red shirt because he didn't even have a name. That creates a light thing. Celeste eventually shows up, frees Lutz, who then frees everyone else. Now we've entered the haunted house portion of the film. Harry gets recaptured, but when Hyde tries to use him as a bargaining chip, Chris shows up from behind and frees him. Hyde then kills his henchman as a replacement sacrifice, which if he could do that, he could have made life way easier for himself and did all that a while ago. Another yellow light appears, Harry distracts Hyde, and Celeste shows up behind him and pushes him into the yellow light, resulting in him disappearing. The film ends with Celeste and Markovic saying goodbye to Lutz, with Markovic telling her if she ever wants to leave LA, they'll hire her there. Probably just to wear low-cut shirts, because otherwise she was pretty useless in the film, other than being the Princess Peach of the witchcraft world.